challenging and intrusive. So, what was or what is your most satisfying leadership role and why? So basically, you have to explain what is the best role which you think gave you that potential of leadership thought, and how did you go by that and accept that situation and make it work.
So I think for me, where a lot of my thoughts started shifting was I started working in an area of the organization that was agile and product focused. And working with them, like so much of what I had read and how I've been leading, I'm a strengths-based leader, like I want to help people like live into their strengths, lean into that, grow into that, and then like how do we push that forward? So it was really great to work in such an environment like that, to like pull closer to the business and say, what are we really trying to get to this? Because a lot of times they'll come to us and they'll say, I want you to go and build this. Why do you want me to build that? And we weren't having the right conversations. So we had to shift the way that we were having conversations. So like every day I went into work thinking about, how do we think about this differently? How do we sit down? Like, because there's this fight that happens between IT and the business, and we think that we're on two different teams, rather than saying, at the end of the day, we're all working toward the same thing, which is to drive revenue for our organization. And if we do this together, we can get to something better. I'm not challenging you as a person. I'm not challenging the way that you're thinking. I want to understand, because your why behind this, what you're asking me to build, matters. And if we can get to that why, then we can have less waste in our software. We can work on far more things that are higher value and actually used. And then we start using data. Like, data has changed so much for us. And that data then allowed us to go and say, you asked us to build these 81 extra fields. You've used 7 of them. There are 7 that have data in them. Then we can have very different conversations.
Yes.
And then we can say, hey, listen, here's how much the product can do. Talk to me about what does our cycle through from the customer standpoint, and how do we want to use it? How does that look? Then we can decide, where are we consuming? Now we're having totally different conversations. We're driving outcomes. We're changing the way that the business is talking about things. And then the products and the investments we're making as an organization then start to have different meaning to all of us. And we're not fighting as much. The people aren't as exhausted. We're not working as many hours. So like that for me was like that moment of pivot to be able to say, like, when we start changing our mind, start talking in different ways and having different conversations, so much can change, and there's so much power in that moment.
About 4 years ago, most satisfying, challenging. I think back to just when the pandemic had hit. I'd gone on a vacation to celebrate our 25th anniversary. I was going to start a new position in product development, which was an area I had never been in before. We came back on Wednesday, early hours of Wednesday. I went into work on Thursday, and Thursday at 2:43 p.m. was when I knew we would probably not come back to work. I hadn't even onboarded my team, right? They just saw me for one day, literally one half day, right? From 8 a.m. to 2:43 p.m. And I specifically remember sinking in my chair and thinking like, what am I going to do now, right? Yeah. Not only do I not know my job in the organization, I have no idea who the people are. So through those first 3 years, and first year was the most challenging, to speak of a specific example, and I know it will resonate with a lot of us, going in, having to learn the organization, having to learn my responsibilities, having to onboard and connect and build a relationship with my team members, at that time 13, having to deal with 7 of them quitting in 4 months when I was on the most difficult compliance project that was to be delivered with the Department of Insurance for a particular state. So to me, to think about that and to realize that at the end of 13 months I came through it in flying colors is something that I think took a lot out of me and everyone around me who supported me, but also it was my most satisfying. Now what went into it, blood, sweat and tears, right? What went into it is great to reflect upon, because I think for the 20 years that came before that, most of my lessons really came to roost in that 1 year. Yeah. If I had learned anything at all, in my life about learning, leave alone just leadership, right? Learning, pivoting, rising from failure, dealing with change, and optimizing and harmonizing, that really came to play and produced the outcomes that were copacetic with what we started out to do. So to me, that was my most fulfilling and most satisfying, albeit more challenging of my situation in life that 1 year.
But what made the difference? Because that
What
could easily
made-
turn into burnout.
So here, X-Pandemic is when Signet underwent a transformation. We went from a project-based organization to a product-based organization. And I saw myself in this new role as a senior manager, a single person product team responsible for a multi-billion-dollar portfolio, where everything was remote. And till that point, I had not interviewed candidates through Zoom. I didn't even know that structure existed. So I was put in a situation where I was expected to, interview remotely and hire people remotely. And the good thing that happened was it significantly expanded the talent source, because now we were open to sourcing people from all over the country. But it was very difficult for me because I had to look for the right culture fit and not just the right skill fit, right? So I put on the hat of what kind of culture do I, and I was a single person product at that point, and I had to build the team ground up, and I was like, what kind of culture, what kind of people do I really want to get on board? And I really focused on coachability and the right culture fit, and I was of the opinion that, skill can be learned on the job. And I'm so glad the people I hired at that point, they became my army, right? They stood by me through the most difficult times. And during pandemic, the e-commerce fulfillment portfolio, it was just crazy, right? Because we had to take strategies to make sure that we are COVID compliant and stuff. But that was the most difficult part of the process, where things just got remote, and I had to kind of adapt my leadership style to fit that. But also looking back, it was the most satisfying experience because I hired some of the best candidates that I could and who have been with me through thick and thin. So
I can really relate with everything that you said. COVID. Yeah, COVID. I didn't know I wanted to be a leader until I was in the middle of COVID, and that's where I learned how to work with other people and help them grow. And I learned how to interview people remotely. I learned everything, how to be a leader remotely. So I really look down to my peers for this kind of inspiration. But yeah, through the pandemic, I realized I want to work closer with people and not so much just focus on technology and helping them grow and be self-organizing.
We did go through a challenging
It
to
is.
all that.
with such inspiring stories.
Yes.
So basically, it was very good to hear that you actually were able to